Is this working? Okay, I hope it's working. All right, we'll start up Jupyter Notebook. Just a PSA to run conda update all. You should do that every couple of weeks, okay? Get your latest packages and stuff. Okay. All right, so here's Jupyter Notebook. I've uploaded these files onto GitHub, so you can download the notebooks and the data files. So I'm using NYC flights. This is it's an R package, but from R I exported it as a CSV, so I can import it into Python. Okay, okay. So anyway, let's take a look here. And let me. We'll clear all our output. Okay, so we haven't really talked about matplotlib, but I know it's been covered in data camp. So at least the basic stuff I don't think is going to be too weird. Okay. So anyway, from R I exported, you load up the package and then I exported it as a CSV file. There were two files I exported, the flights table and the airline names to kind of match up the carrier codes with the airline names. And so anyway, they are in NYC flights.csv, and they are basically the flight information from 20. It's it's pretty big, about 28 megs. Okay, 27.9 megs. And so you'll load that up and you read that in. Okay, takes a moment, and we can just kind of take a look when using flights.head. So you do pandas.read CSV flights.head. And we see, we got year, month, day, departure time, scheduled departure time, departure delay, arrival time, scheduled arrival time, arrival delay, carrier, flight, tail number, origin, destination, air time, distance, hour, minute, and time hour. Okay. And this is for the year 2013. And if we look at the information, we see most of our stuff is pulled in as ints, okay, integers. Some are floats, and then we've got objects for basically our strings, okay. The reason why pandas doesn't call string things strings is because it runs on top of NumPy, and NumPy handles strings a little bit different from the way Python treats strings. And so to distinguish, and pandas tries to handle strings the way Python handles strings, and so to distinguish it from the strings of NumPy and the strings of Python, it calls them objects. Okay, but anyway, that's probably more complex than we care to know. Just know that object is basically string. Okay. One thing we note is that if we looked at the CSV directly, the departure time looks something like this. Okay. And these are being pulled as integers, but they're not really integers. They're times. And so you have 515 represents 5:15 in the morning. Okay, 545 would be 5:45 in the morning, and 600 would be 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, we're probably going to have to do some corrections here, because if I did, what's the difference between 545 and 600? It would calculate it as 55, okay? But that's not correct, because the time between 5:45 and 6 o'clock is 15 minutes, okay? And so we're gonna have to do some cleanup here and get pandas to recognize that this is time information and not numeric values, okay? We're all accustomed to, the way we report time, but it's really kind of weird, right? That we have this base 60 system. I don't know. Does anyone know any origin story of how we decided these things. Huh?
I think it's never mind.
Okay. Circle 300. I know. Okay. Well. Okay. And departure times get pulled in as floats. Okay. And if we take a look at it, the reason why they're floats, if we take a look at the tail, is we see some of these things are missing. We've got nans. Okay. So these are probably like flights that got canceled. They were on the docket and said, you know, there should be a flight on September 30th that goes from JFK to DCA, but for whatever reason, and it was scheduled to leave at 2:55 in the afternoon, but it never happened. Okay, so things like the departure time, the departure delay, and because it never departed, its arrival time doesn't exist either, and its arrival delay doesn't exist, and so all of these things are missing. Okay. So anyway, and the missing values, as far as numbers go, are represented with floats. Okay, because missing, the nan is a float object, and so they go in as missing. Okay, so what we can do is I'm going to read the data in using read CSV again. But this time I'm going to say, all of these things that currently have nans, but they're times, I'm going to say treat them as objects, treat them as string things. Okay, so we're going to say departure time, departure delay. Let's make all of these objects. Okay, and I'm going to align all of these colons because it's fun. Okay, so we're going to do that, and we're going to tell it. I don't want decimal points. Basically, is what's going on. All right, I don't want it to be 517.0. I want it to be 517. I want it to be treated as a string. So I'm going to come in here, and that's not what I'm supposed to be. Okay, I want to do this. Okay, and I read that in, and when I look at head, indeed, it looks this way: 517, 515, and we don't have any more decimal points. Okay. If we look at the tail, okay, if I pull up kind of the last 10 rows, the missing values, the nans are still preserved, and type object allows for that, to have missing values. Okay, so even though we always think of nans as floats, type object allows kind of to represent missing as nans. Okay, and okay, and then the next thing I kind of want to clean up is I want to take year, month, day, and I want to turn that into a date thing. Okay, so rather than 2013 and September and 30 being separated here, we can use pandas to date time function. Okay, and so this creates an object of time of type date time, or a DT object, and that takes in basically if your data comes in this form, you can provide it a dictionary of how to map the values to different parts of a date. Okay, so we're going to take so this is currently our data frame flights, and so if I say flights dot year, that's going to just be the series. Flights dot year is just the series of 2013. And flights.month will just be the series for the month, and same with day. And I set up a dictionary so that the year is the year, the month is the month, and the day is the day. Okay, and you put that into the function to date time, and pandas will convert them into a date time object. Here, let me before I save that. Okay, and so now we have this, and this is the way it represents date time objects. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say create a new column called date, and it's going to be equal to this series. Okay, and so now when I take a look at the head of flight, everything's there, and now we have a new column that contains the date information. All right, and then and what I also want to do is I want to turn these values 517, 517, 533 into clock times, right? 5:17 in the morning, 5:44 in the morning, things like that. That's what I want to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat, we're just going to start with departure time, okay? I'm going to treat this as a string, and I'm going to say take the last two values, okay, the last two characters in the string, and that will be the minute, okay? And then everything but the last two, because let me just say like head 20. This is not a good example. Okay, so some of the times have 4 digits, right? Four digit strings to represent, 11:49 at night, and some of the other ones only have 3, and so I can't just say like the first character or the first 2 characters. So I'm going to just say everything but the last 2 characters will be the hour, okay? And so the way I'm going to do this, just so things don't break, all right, is I'm going to say, here, let me, I guess I'll build this up, right? So first we're going to take a look at the series, flights.departure time, okay, and that's this column. And I want, and if we look at this, we have some missing values. So I want the ones that aren't missing. So I'm going to subset this to be flights.departure time, and if you do flights.departure time not null, okay, this will give you true and false, okay? If it's not null, it's true, and if it is null, if it's missing, it's going to return false. And so we can, I can subset it like this, right? And so this will just give me the values of flights.departure time that aren't missing. Okay, so that's what I have. So now I don't have any missing values here. So flights.departure time bracket flights.departure time not null. So that's going to be the ones that aren't missing. Now, if we look at this and we say, what kind of object type is this? Data type it's an object. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we want to do just we can do string slicing, right? So if you have a string, you can just kind of provide it some slicing indexes and slice it up that way. There's a few options here. I can call string.string and it will give us access to string methods. Okay. I can also do as type and as type string, and this will it looks pretty much the same here. Okay, I think I can go straight to the string methods and say I want just like the last 2 characters. Okay, I'm gonna throw in as type str just kind of as a precaution in case something isn't a string type, but because it is already a string type, you can access the string methods directly. As type string will just kind of cast them. I always want to say coerce, but cast them as strings, and we'll give you access to the string methods. So if you want to call the methods that exist on strings, such as like if I did carrier, okay, this does this. I can pull, I can do string methods dot lower, and it will pull up the string methods that exist, right? You can title case, and it looks kind of funny there. But you have access to the string methods, and in this case, the string methods that I just want are for departure time, okay? And we just want to extract the last two. We just want to do some string slicing here. So I'm going to say -2 colon, and it pulls out the last two digits, okay? And then to get the hour, I'm going to say everything but the last two, okay? And this will pull out the first half of the string, okay? So this will pull out. So I save departure minute and departure hour, and they're basically the same thing, but for the minute I say the last two characters, and for the hour I say everything but the last two characters. Okay, and here we'll just take a look at the head of both of these things, and this indeed seems to be doing exactly what we want, right? So so here I got 517, 533. They've been extracted into 5 and 17 and 33 and 42. Yeah.
So as type only courses them for the purpose of the function and that.
Yeah. Well, as type will coerce them into that type. Okay. So it'll coerce them, or I should say cast them. That's what the term is in Python. It'll cast them into the type that it is, and then once it's in that type, you'll have access to the methods that are kind of specific to that type. In this case, because it's already of object type, it's not necessary to necessarily cast them into as type string. I'd like to do this though, because sometimes you'll have a series and you think it's a certain type, but it's not, and then so when you try to call a string method on it, it'll error out. Okay, and so now that I have the departure hour and the departure minute, I can create another datetime object that includes the year, the month, the day, the hour, and the minute, okay, using pandas to datetime function. And it takes a little while to run because it has to do this over, 300 something thousand rows, 336,000 rows. And indeed, it recognizes this now as 5:17 in the morning, 5:33 in the morning, and things like that. So that's good, because here, let's just do like the first 10. Oh, shoot. I didn't actually want to. Okay, so we have it here, okay? And so that looks good. And so I want to do the same thing for the other things: scheduled departure time, arrival time, scheduled arrival time, all of that stuff, okay? And I think, well, I don't know, maybe not airtime, but we'll go ahead and do that. At this point, it might be tempting, and I encourage you to stop thinking in copy paste, okay? Because it might be tempting to say like, okay, this worked here for this column, and I just need to do the same thing for these 3 or 4 other columns. So I'm just going to copy and paste this chunk of code, and I'm going to replace departure time with scheduled departure time, and I'll copy and paste it again, and I'm going to replace departure time with arrival time, and things like that, okay? If you're going to do the same thing, the same exact thing over and over again, you want to start thinking of writing things as a function, okay? And just in case something, you realize you need to modify something, you don't have to fix that modification in 5 separate locations and have an error. So here I'm going to just create a new function called convert time, okay? And basically, I'm going to do exactly what I had, right? So I'm going to say we want the hour and the minute, okay? For the minute, we're going to, it's going to be a function of a column name, and we're going to take the flights table subset it to the column name. We're going to filter down to just where that column name is not null, and we're going to do as type string and pull out the last two characters and the first everything but the last two, and then we're going to create a date time thing using all of those pieces. Okay, so here I'm defining a new function so that I can just do this thing on all of the columns without having to copy and paste that same chunk of code. All right, and then so here I just want to make sure it'll work on the departure time column. And so I run it. And yeah, it takes a little bit. Okay, and then when I check it out, the first 10 and the last 10, indeed it seems like it's working. So that's good news. Okay. And it might take a few iterations. And this is why I ended up using as type string, because in the beginning I didn't use it, and then it was causing some issues along the way, because what was it? When I imported this departure time, I imported as type object, okay? And so I had access to the string methods, but scheduled departure time didn't have any missing values, and so it came in as an integer. And then so when I tried to call the string methods on the integers, it was giving me problems. And so in order to get it to work, I realized I had to insert this as type string. And so, as type string on the object that's already a string, doesn't really do anything, okay? But it was certainly necessary for the columns that were integer types. I had to convert those to strings using as type string, okay? And so this is the result of a little bit of, iterative, you try something and it breaks, and so you have to fix it, right? Yes?
In the 2-day time function, aren't the hour and a minute, don't they have different lengths compared to flights year and flights month? Because you remove some of the null values, right?
Oh, so this is the beauty of pandas, is that pandas uses series, and so it keeps the index information, and it only when we say match up the year and the month and the day and the hour and the minute, it only matches up where the indexes match. Okay, so yes, if we were doing this in R, this would cause us problems, because exactly like you said, flights.year, that column has a different length than the hour and the minute. But pandas, when you're working with a series, it always retains that index, and so it always matches up the index first, and then it does the operation. Okay. So yeah, we didn't even make a big issue out of it, but the magic of indexes allow us to combine flights.year, which has missing, which has all the rows, and say the underscore hour, which only exists for rows where departure time is not NA, or not an AN, okay? So that's a if it is that's like a complaint that people coming from Python and pandas have when they go back to R. They're like, why does R suck? And it's just different, right? It handles things differently. And so anyway, so it works. So that's great. And so now we'll apply that to apply that function that we wrote up and run it for scheduled departure time, arrival time, and scheduled arrival time, and we're going to just create a kind of new series, which I'll call scheduled departure date time and all of this stuff. And it takes a little bit of time to run because it's doing this over 336,000 rows. And then I'm going to create I'm going to concatenate these 4 series together into a new data frame, okay? So pd.concat will create a new data frame. I don't know if I should write this. Okay, so pd.concat creates a new data frame by, you know, joining several series together. Or, you know, even data frame series, or I'll just say. All right, I wanted to sneeze, but it's always a disappointment when that happens. All right, okay. Several pandas objects together, I should say. All right, so so here we do this, and we just join up these things, and we have these 4 columns. Oh, axis equals 0 is the default, in that it's gonna it's expecting to concatenate rows with each other, but here we're merging columns together, so we say axis equals 1, okay, and then you know, these series exist, and we'll join them. Yes.
If we do axis equals 0 for rows, does it keep the column names but kept in like the indices or something?
So it'll give me an error here, okay? If I did this, it's oh, I guess no. Oh, okay. The it does it, but then the shape is super big. Okay.
But does it keep the column names?
It doesn't. In this case, it's not going to keep. Let me see. Let's just take a look. Oh, it creates a multi-index. It creates a multi-index. Okay. So it creates on the left-hand side, we have 2 levels of index. Okay. We have the arrival date time starting at 0, going and it goes through, and it so technically this arrival date time exists in the multi-index for every single one of these rows, but for cleaner appearances it only appears at the top, and so this creates a multi-level index. Oh shoot, I didn't want to do that. Stop. Interrupt the kernel. Okay, I think. All right. Will this still work? Okay, we're okay. All right, let's just do header. I guess I'll talk about. I don't know. We'll see how far we get, but we'll talk about multi-level indexes. They power like our pivot tables and stuff. Okay, so anyway, I have all of these new columns that I've done, and so I've got a data frame of flights and the data frame date times, and I'm gonna join them together. Okay, so it's kind of like a SQL operation if you guys know SQL, but and if you don't, we'll learn it like, I don't know, week 8 or something. And so these we'll kind of stitch these together based on the index. That's the default. You can join it based on other columns, but when you join it on the index, that's the default here. Okay, and so now we have 24 columns, and it's too much to print, so it skips some of these. But then you know, our 4 columns appear here. Yes.
You didn't choose to concatenate flights with flights again.
Oh,
All flights and date time.
So I said flights.join date times will create a new data frame, and I'm going to store that as flights to kind of overwrite itself.
What if you use pd.concat?
pd.concat, I think that would work. Let me see. So if I did pd.concat, let's see, flights and date times, axis equals 1, let's just look at the head. Concat got multiple values for argument.
Oh, you need to put it
It's
in
in
this
the
side.
list.
Oh, yeah, you know what? This is gonna... Oh, maybe it's okay. Yeah, no, it works fine. Okay, so I could have done it that way as well, yeah. Because flights already has 24 columns, it's just sticking on the same 4 columns on top of that. So this is a new object, but so yeah, we could have done that. Yeah, there's always 6 ways to do the same thing in pandas, okay? And I'm not gonna say one way is the best or whatever. Okay, let me just see. 24 columns, there we go. All right, this is optional. You don't have to do this. But like we can get rid of the year, month, day columns. All right, and we won't be losing any information because all of that is in the date column here, okay? And then I can probably also get rid of other things, but I was a little bit nervous about that. So if I run this, and we just take a look at the top of flights, now we only have 21 columns. I don't know if that's any better, but there we go. And if you want to extract, say, we got rid of that thing that said year and month and day. If you want to extract any of that, okay, you can take the column flights.date, and then you want to access the methods that are, or the attributes that pertain to date time objects. So for example, if you have a date time object, you can use .dt, and this will give you basically datetime properties, and from there you can extract things like the month, okay, or the day, or can I do a day of week? No, that's not weekday. Okay, it has a calendar. What's the here? Let me see. Pandas dt weekday name. A weekday name. Okay. Weekday underscore name. When you say weekday underscore name, it's gonna say. Oh, I guess you can. I don't know. Let's see this. Series object is not callable. Pandas.dt.
It's not a function.
Maybe I need to press C to call it.
Okay, yeah, I don't need to call it. There's another one where you do call it, and you specify what language you speak, okay? Because you're right, we call it Tuesday, but it's something else somewhere else, right? So not everybody calls it Tuesday, whereas the weekday, it starts on Monday, so 0 is Monday and 1 is Tuesday and 6 is Sunday. So anyway, we've got that. So anyway, if you want to pull out something like the month, you can do that. Okay. So we haven't lost any information because it's still in the datetime object. Okay, and so now that we've done that, we can just start playing around a little bit and doing just some exploratory, very, very exploratory analysis. These aren't even like conditioned on anything, or I mean, barely conditioned on stuff. And I haven't even played around with like the delay column, okay, which is probably, as far as this data set goes, probably the most interesting column. But here I'm just going to look at some very basic stuff. This is flights coming from New York. So here I'm going to just do take the column carrier, and let's see how many unique ones there are. Okay, and we've got all this stuff. There's 16 of them, and we have flights.carrier.value counts, and this is what we get. Let me bring something up. So these carrier names, they're the symbols that I don't know, the airlines use, right? This is like flight AA whatever for American Airlines. There's a CSV file that carries the airline names. Okay, so 9E is Endeavor Air. Apparently that's a company. I don't know anything, right? And B6 is JetBlue. You know, some of these make sense. AA being America, DL being Delta, UA being United. But I don't know what these. Envoy Air, okay. Small regional things, okay. And Southwest is WN, which I don't know. Okay, but anyway, we can join this with like this thing, this series that we just produced earlier, or here in this case, I don't even have to do that. I can ask for out 64. Oh no. Error flight. Oh, sort value. Oh, yeah. Okay, sort, of course. That's not going to work. All right. So, so here's the counts that we produced in out 64, and then and you can just join the carrier based on this. So when I read in carrier, I said the index column is going to be the carrier column, okay? And then so joining will default to joining on the index, and so now I have the carrier count here, and the name of these things. I probably want to do sort values on carrier. Oops. In quotes. What is this? Defaulting to column, but this will raise an ambiguity error in future version. Oh yeah, that's an issue. Okay, well, there you go, have it. Okay, and ascending equals false. This is always, I can never remember. Do I use ascending or descending? Only because I was playing around with it earlier, I remember, oh yeah, it's ascending is false, not descending is true. Because I think R mostly uses descending true, and Python ascending false. Life is really hard. So anyway, we have this, okay? And then we have United Airlines and JetBlue. They fly a lot out of New York. Okay, we can do origination airports, all right? There's 3 New York area airports, Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK. And if we just say, how many of these, how many flights are there, we have that, okay? We have functions that do aggregating. So if you recall dplyr and group by, we have similar operations here, okay? And then, we chain our commands together. So, in dplyr, you use that pipe function, and you say, like, group by this, and then aggregate on this, and do that, summarize on this and that. Here, we do something very similar, okay? And so here I'm going to do, like, flights.groupby, and I'm going to group by the origin, and it gives me a group by object. And then if I say, give me scheduled departure time, it also gives me, a series group by. So now I'm extracting out the column scheduled departure date time. And here I'm going to say count them up, okay? And there we go, okay? And we get the same value here, 120, 835, and so on and so forth. If you, from the group by, if you use a column that has nans in it, and you ask for a count, it's not going to include the missing values here, okay? So, which column you select does matter as far as when you say count up these things, right? If I say count, what is it? Pandas count nan. Using the is there a nan count? No. Okay. I'm pretty sure there's a way to count, including the nans, but I don't know off the top of it. I'm gonna have to search for it on Google. Okay. How many destination airports? There's a lot. I don't even know what any of these are. Okay. So there's 105 destinations. If we just look at the top 10, so because the value counts generally sorts from decreasing. ORD is Chicago, Atlanta, LAX, Boston, MCO. I don't know, where's MCO? MCO airport. Orlando, okay. That makes sense, right? These are like your major hubs. Okay, just going on. So here, I'm going to take the column departure date and time. So this is, flights that actually left. Here we call .dt so we can access the date time methods. And then we're going to do month, okay? And so that extracts the month. And then value counts kind of counts them up for us, okay? And it sorts them from greatest to least. So we see August having the 28,000 flights, and February having the least with 23,000 flights. That's actually quite small. What do you think is going on there? Yeah, weather, right? Weather sucks in February. So we get because departure date time is the ones that aren't missing, right? If we did scheduled departure date and time, we probably still have a few, less that are scheduled, but I don't know. Let's see, 7, 8, 10, 3, 5, 4, 6. As far as 8, 10, 3, it gets about the same. Okay. So those are the months that are most busy, and then here we can just take this exact same thing that we've put up here. I'm going to do sort based on the index, okay? Because here it defaults to sorting from greatest to least, but I actually want it to go from 1 to 12 based on the index. So you're going to say sort based on the index, and then I'm going to throw this into matplotlib using plot. I'm going to ask for a bar plot. It defaults to making a line. Line is fine, but we're going to do plot, I don't know, colors Dodger blue because my heart's broken. And then we'll ask for, we'll add a title, okay? And then we'll say, show me this plot. And we're like, okay, there's a lot of flights. And February is a little bit lower, but, comparatively, they're all relatively similar heights, which makes sense to us, I think. Sure. In the summer, there's a few more flights. Okay. What time of day is the busiest? These are all kind of like the same thing here, but I did it using group by. So I'm doing flights group by, and we're gonna group on the hour. Okay. So we're gonna say departure date time dt dot hour, and we'll count them here. And we'll group that. I guess I could have done scheduled departure date and time, and this will be, oh, that seems weird. Okay, so we got the departure date and time and the count. And that defaults to sorting by the index when you use group by. And here we'll call for this, and we also see, indeed, few people fly on flights scheduled at midnight, 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the morning, and kind of what we expect. Lots of morning flights at 8 a.m., lots of flights in the afternoon, and it kind of drops off as you approach like red-eye flights. Okay, so these are the ones that take off. Okay. All right. It looks like we'll run out of time here, but and I guess we can continue just exploring, doing some exploratory data analysis using pandas here.
Yeah, I know that.